Every day on this channel, I cover everything Elon Musk said on X over the last 24 hours. And here's everything he said. As always, I'll cover one category completely before moving on to the next one. And starting with SpaceX, Elon responded to Andrew McCarthy, who said absolutely wild that Starship was built by humans, sharing this picture of Starship right here. He said Starship flies again as soon as tomorrow. I'll be in South Texas to cover the launch, photos to come. And Elon said Starship still tracking to fly tomorrow. And SpaceX is the most reliable big launch provider in history and soon to be the most prolific ever as well. You can see in their 675 launches, they've had a 99.1% success rate. This was quoted by John Edwards, a SpaceX engineer, who said it's the most reliable big launch provider in history, and Elon reposted that. And SpaceX just launched 2 Falcon 9 rockets carrying 56 Starlink satellites in less than 8 hours. SpaceX is moving at light speed right now. First, there was 27 Starlink satellites from Vandenberg. Then, just 7 hours and 42 minutes later, 29 more Starlink satellites from Florida. 2 coasts, 2 rockets, 56 satellites, less than 8 hours. For most space programs, one launch is a major national achievement. SpaceX launched twice in one day and was already preparing for the next mission. SpaceX is basically running an orbital assembly line, and Elon reposted that. And he says, order the Starlink V5 terminal, which was just announced. It's the next generation Starlink kit, which is designed to deliver reliable high-speed home internet. Starlink version 5 has a smaller form factor and lightweight design with greater power efficiency than the Starlink version 4. With speeds up to and greater than 375 megabits per second, Starlink version 5 delivers seamless connectivity for streaming, video calling, gaming, and more. It's currently available in select areas. As production ramps, Starlink version 5 will be available in additional areas, and you can order it now. And this is what the version 5 looks like right here. And some more details, it's 48% smaller and 62% lighter than version 4. And some interesting statistics, it uses 35 to 50 watts of power versus 75 to 100. It's rated for 265 kilometers an hour versus 96 on the previous version, with the same 110 degree field of view. And version 5 is significantly smaller than version 4. You can see version 4 right here, version 5 right here, despite delivering more speed. And Elon reposted that. And Michael, another SpaceX engineer, says congrats to the Starlink team on the release of the new Starlink version 5 terminal designed with high performance, reliability, and scalability in mind based on the learnings of our previous products, also designed and manufactured in the United States of America. And Elon reposted that. And an update on the Terafab project, top computer chip equipment maker ASML said its capacity expansion plans in 2027 and 2028 unveiled today take into account demand for its tools from Elon Musk's planned Terafab chip production facility in Texas, saying we're in dialogue with all of our customers and we know what their building plans are. Terafab is also part of those plans, said the CFO Roger Dassin. Dassin also said ASML was close to fully booking its 2027 ultraviolet capacity and had already secured a substantial number of 2028 extreme ultraviolet lithography orders, and Elon reposted that. And on Tesla, this is an insane drone flyover of Giga, Texas. Tesla owners Silicon Valley flew their FPV drone right over Tesla's massive Gigafactory in Texas and captured epic aerial views of the factory. The sheer size of this place is mind-blowing. You can see a cybercab right down here, right here. And look, this is the entire lot of Teslas right there. It's a absolutely massive lot. And the building itself is absolutely insane in terms of scale. And I'll put this again in the description for you guys. And Tesla has partnered with 7-Eleven Japan to begin installing superchargers at the country's largest convenience store chain. The 150 supercharger site in Japan was also the first of this new partnership, which opened on July 11th at the 7-Eleven Kawasaki Tomokodonka East store in Kanagawa Prefecture. You can take a look at it right here. It's right next to a 7-Eleven with a Model YL charging right there. And Elon reposted this. And moving on to artificial intelligence, Apple just sued OpenAI for trade secret theft in a 41-page federal complaint. Peter H. Diamandis says the two companies were partners a year and a half ago, and now they're in an all-out legal war over the post-smartphone device future. How quickly do the tables turn? And Elon reposted that. And Palmer Luckey says, everyone who thinks AI slop will ruin code efficiency and performance is going to be so surprised when everything is absurdly well optimized John Carmack-style machine coding. Suhail responded saying the final post-train run is just Fabris, Carmack, and Jeff Dean's code. And Elon said, Grok, is this true? It is. And the Grok 4.5 usage was reset to 0% time to build. And Grok just leveled up again. 2 major new connectors have been added: Stripe allowing payments, customers, and invoices, and Calendly, which handles availability, scheduling, and meetings. Grok can now help manage both the money coming into a business and the time behind it. It is quickly becoming an operating layer for the entire workflow. And Elon says try Grok 4.5 for free, an all-new Opus class model that is fast and low cost. It's great for real-world coding and engineering tasks. And Grok 4.5 has climbed to the number 2 spot on the Frontier SWE benchmark. The results place Grok 4.5 among the world's top performing AI models for software engineering tasks, highlighting its growing strength in real-world coding and agentic developer workflows. Another milestone as xAI continues advancing Grok's coding capabilities. And Elon quoted that statistic saying, "Grok." We saw this yesterday. Grok 4.5 just took the number 1 spot on the Long Horizon Terminal bench, outperforming Claude Fable 5, Claude Opus 4.8, and GPT 5.6 Sol. This benchmark tests whether an AI agent can sustain progress across hundreds of dependent terminal actions for up to 90 minutes without losing the thread. Across 46 difficult tasks and 18 frontier models, Grok 4.5 achieved the highest mean reward at 0.505. Grok 4.5 is proving that it can handle complex agentic work over long periods of time. Xfree says this is extremely important for real-world coding, automation, and difficult engineering tasks. Elon quoted that saying, "A good reason to try Grok 4.5 with Grok Build. It gets better every day." Grok also says Grok 4.5 is built for real-world engineering and excels in large code bases and handles long-running tasks that span multiple repositories, hundreds of skills, and a variety of tools. And Elon reposted that. And the big news from today comes as Elon says, once we have completed a review for security vulnerabilities, we will make the entire codebase of X open source with no exceptions. Moreover, we will invite third-party reviewers to examine the system that is running to confirm that the open source code is what is running. Trust through total transparency is the only thing that should be believed. And he also pinned this to the top of his X feed. And today, I Like Tesla said the only thing that needs correcting in the algorithm is that if I like a World Cup post, it doesn't mean I want to be flooded with World Cup posts. Same with other topics. Give me 90% people I follow and random other topics, please. And Elon said showing more content from people you follow has been one of the fixes. The algorithm not barraging you with similar content due to a few likes is another. And we saw this yesterday how Arthur McWater said Elon buying Twitter and restoring free speech was unironically one of the most pivotal moments in the 21st century. And this comes as after Elon purchased Twitter in November 2022, the amount of DEI commitments plummeted. And Ulrich adds on to this saying Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter is certainly one of the most important events in recent Western history, and we're only just beginning to realize it. In a single acquisition, Musk managed to restore free speech in a social media landscape where discourse had been locked in favor of left-wing collective ideas. Everything was stacked in their favor, no intellectual opposition, no questioning, no contradictions, total collusion with those in power. Musk could have jumped into the battle of ideas and funded his own right-wing media outlet or influencers aligned with his views, but that wouldn't have done any good, and Musk understood that full well. He needed to be more radical, aim higher, and change the very battlefield in which the battle of ideas is waged. That's a stroke of genius behind the Twitter acquisition. He radically changed the rules of the game rather than accepting to play by the left's rules. What needs to be understood is that as long as the left controls the culture, the channels for disseminating ideas, and the semantics, it will always win. That's how it's been winning for decades, if not longer. You don't win by playing on equal terms with others, but by ensuring you have an unfair advantage over them. And that's why the American right was losing and the European right continues to lose. In the end, all it took was to put fair rules in place for everyone. By throwing them into the arena of the battle of ideas without any advantage, the left's intellectual edifice collapses on its own. No need to fund great right-wing intellectuals to achieve that. It's enough to pit the left's pseudo-intellectuals against the average Joe on X. That's more than enough to knock them out, and that's the whole magic of the free market of ideas and liberated speech. And this was quoted by Bravael, who said, yes, Elon will be seen in some time as the hero who saved the West and brought us to a new type of civilization. And Elon gave him a heart. And Utah says people may disagree on which frontier model is best, but they all seem to agree the current X algorithm is superb. And Elon reposted that. And coming as New York City passed a referendum to stop the production of data centers, City Journal says data centers haven't been raising residential bills. The sharpest increases are found in states that have pursued the country's most aggressive climate policies, not those with the most data centers. California, with some of the nation's fastest rising electricity rates, has seen relatively modest data center growth. Virginia, where data centers consume more than a fifth of the state's electricity, has experienced price increases near the national average. Mark Andreessen called this interesting, and Elon reposted that. And on AI, OpenAI, Gavin Baker says at some level the bull case for both humans and traditional software is intelligence per watt. And Elon responded to that saying yes. Peter H.D. Amondes said 4 frontier AI models released in 7 days. Fable 5, Grok 4.5, GPT 5.6, and Muse Spark. Not long ago we got 1 model every 6 months. We're in the singularity. And Elon said yes. Speaking of the singularity, much of Elon's discussion today focused on this article, A Framework for Frontier AI and the Dawning of a New Age. It starts out by saying this is a pivotal moment in human history. Artificial general intelligence, a system that exhibits all the cognitive capabilities the brain has, is probably only a few short years away. When we look back on this time in the decades to come, I think we will realize we are standing in the foothills of the singularity, nothing less than the dawning of a new age for humanity. I've spent my whole life working on AGI because I've always had a deep conviction that, if built and deployed responsibly, it would prove to be one of the most beneficial and transformative technologies ever invented. AGI cannot be compared to standard technological breakthroughs, not even ones as consequential as the internet or mobile. It is much more akin to the discovery of electricity or fire. If you stop to think about it, we've essentially found a way to make sand think. It's miraculous. The magnitude of this technology's impact will be unprecedented, perhaps 10 times of the Industrial Revolution at 10 times the speed. It will help us solve some of the biggest problems society faces, from accelerating drug discovery to developing new clean energy sources to creating novel advanced materials. We could even reach a point where resources are no longer the limiting factor for human progress, leading to an amazing new era of abundance. AI is already starting to deliver real-world benefits, but to realize its immense promise, we have to navigate this critical period of development thoughtfully and carefully. Urgent action is needed to address risks that may arise as we get closer to artificial general intelligence. We've already seen the challenges frontier models pose for cybersecurity, and other threats including nuclear and bioweapon risk may soon emerge as capabilities continue to advance. On the horizon, we'll need robust safeguards to maintain control of increasingly agentic, recursively self-improving systems and tackle unknown issues that will only become clearer over time. The author says, I've always believed in the power of human ingenuity and creativity to solve any problem. I'm confident that mitigating the technical risks related to artificial intelligence is a challenge we can collectively address, but only if we give ourselves the time and space to get this next crucial step right. Currently, as a field and as a wider society, we aren't doing that. At the moment, we are locked in an extremely intense, multi-layered commercial and geopolitical race. While these competitive dynamics fuel rapid progress and accelerate the incredible upsides, advances on the frontier are outpacing our understanding of that technology. Nobody in the world knows for sure what is going to happen from here, and even the experts disagree. When there is a large degree of uncertainty and the stakes are this high, proceeding with cautious optimism is a sensible and correct strategy. That calls for public policy that promotes innovation while also incentivizing responsibility and security, fosters international collaboration on key safety issues, and encourages careful consideration of how artificial intelligence is deployed for the benefit of society. And he provides a framework for a frontier AI standards body. The rapid progress we're seeing in artificial intelligence requires a new approach to testing frontier AI model capabilities that is dynamic, adaptable, and rigorous. The US is well positioned, given its economic and technical standing, to take the first step in developing such a framework. It could establish a new standards body modeled on a federally overseen public-private partnership or self-regulatory organization, much like the Financial Industry Regulation Authority, with a board that includes independent leading technical experts and open source representatives. Funding would need to be substantial and likely mostly come from industry in order to attract world-class technical talent and provide the necessary compute resources for large-scale testing. The standards body would be responsible for developing assessment protocols and working with appropriate federal agencies and the United States national labs to conduct testing in areas relevant to national security. A model would qualify as frontier class if it meets certain thresholds on a set of benchmarks determined by the standards body and regularly updated to keep pace with evolving AI capabilities. Organizations with frontier models as defined by those benchmarks would be deemed frontier labs and be encouraged to adopt best practices such as publishing model cards with technical details, maintaining strong internal cybersecurity, vetting key personnel, and providing sufficient resources for safety and security research, and more. Initially, frontier labs would voluntarily share models with the standards body for review up to 30 days before release. Once the assessment protocol is shown to be effective and robust, formalization could quickly follow, meaning that frontier models would be required to pass it to be deployed in the United States market. Labs would also work with the standards body to address any critical post-release vulnerabilities. Model assessment should include rigorous scientific evaluations of capabilities in cybersecurity, biological threats, and other high-risk domains. Specific agentic AI tests could look for attempts to bypass safety guardrails or signs of deception and ensure best practices such as digitally watermarking AI-generated images and generating human-readable output tokens to understand model reasoning. These evaluations would be regularly updated, perhaps quarterly to start, with outdated or saturated benchmarks being deprecated and replaced. Initially, there would be development in consultation with frontier labs, but eventually the standards body should build up the technical capacity to create its own held-out test independent of the labs to prevent overfitting. Working with the United States government, it could promote an ecosystem of third-party auditors to help with the assessments and development of new benchmarks and evaluations. The strength of this approach is that it would be technically focused while at the same time supporting innovation and incentivizing responsible behavior. It is designed to keep up with the field's acceleration and adapt to the biggest risks as they are identified, and could be ratcheted up if the seriousness of the situation demands, including coordinating a slowdown in development among the frontier labs if deemed necessary. And this article concludes saying the future is not yet written. Artificial general intelligence has the potential to be the ultimate tool for advancing science and medicine, and to drive enormous productivity gains and economic growth, but in order to achieve this, we need to get the technical foundations right by coordinating around a shared global framework, using the most rigorous scientific methods and bringing the best minds together to work on the challenges we face. Even if we solve these hard technical challenges, there will be further complex economic and philosophical questions to tackle. What sorts of new economic models will be needed to help everyone thrive in a post-scarcity world? What values we want to live by? What will meaning and purpose be, and how might even the human condition itself change? Resolving these questions obviously cannot and should not be left to technologists alone. It requires every part of society to come together to help define this new chapter. There is both huge excitement and uncertainty around artificial intelligence, and both are warranted, but the future is not yet written. We must use this precious window before artificial general intelligence arrives to shape this technology for the benefit of all humanity. What we collectively do now will determine how the next phase of civilization unfolds. By safely stewarding artificial general intelligence into the world, we can enter a new golden age of scientific discovery and progress, and usher in a bright future of incredible human flourishing. And this was written by Demis Hassabis, which Sundar Pichai quoted, "Well said, Demis, worth reading." And not only did Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, comment on this, Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, said an important piece from Demis. "We need more of this kind of thinking. A good reminder that the goal is a frontier ecosystem that promotes innovation and choice while avoiding any one model drop that breaks the world." And Elon reposted both of those, as well as saying there seems to be widespread agreement on this topic. And he calls the article a thoughtful framework overall, and certainly a good starting point for discussion. Moving on to politics, radical anti-population propaganda is integrated into classrooms across the United States and reaches 3 million United States students every year. Moreberth says an organization that Paul Ehrlich created, Population Connection, continues to miseducate millions of American kids every year with antinatalism and overpopulation fear-mongering through a network of teachers. Elon reposted that, as well as responding to a Wall Street Journal opinion. It says, "I was a college student when I read Mr. Ehrlich's The Population Bomb. I took it to heart and now have no grandchildren, but 50 years later, the population has increased to 8 billion without dire consequences. I was gullible and stupid." Wilfred Riley says, "Actual evil, entropy filtered through human agents, tends to be subtle. At its root, evil means nothing beyond making things worse for life of our kind, taking potentially or actually complex and fractal systems and collapsing them into something lesser." 5 current examples: the anti-nuke movement, 4B, antinatalism, non-education of women, and disparate impact doctrine. All of these things will affect life in a civilized country over a century, far more than 5% of young male fighters dying generationally in war. Elon said Paul Ehrlich was one of the most evil men ever. And Kevin Bass quoted this saying he was anti-human. He made things up about population growth to persuade people that fewer humans should exist. How many fewer millions of humans knew and enjoyed parents, children, friends, life because of Paul Ehrlich? He was the great priest of extinctionism. And Elon said yes. And on fraud, NPR corrected itself about an earlier version of a story involving Nick Shirley. It incorrectly said that Nick Shirley and his colleague claimed to have uncovered $110,000 in fraud. In fact, it was $110 million in fraud. Ashley Reinsberger says that's one hell of a correction by NPR. And this was quoted by Nick Shirley, who said, "Remember when instead of investigating the fraud, the mainstream media decided to investigate the person who exposed the fraud? Why? Because they were complicit in the cover-up. I was right, they were wrong. I work for you, they work against you. The media is full of leerers." And this was quoted by Vice President J.D. Vance, who said, "Our administration owes a debt of gratitude to Nick Shirley for exposing one of the most egregious cases of fraud this country has ever seen. If the media was worth their salt, they would take notes from Nick and other citizen journalists who care about investigating stories that affect the American people instead of trying to silence them." And Elon reposted that. And on immigration, Arthur McWater says, "Open borders in a welfare state is essentially just gerrymandering by immigration. Most people are unaware that illegal immigrants are counted in the census that determines how many representatives each state gets, and that only 12 states actually require proof of citizenship to register to vote. This obviously creates a perverted incentive for politicians. Whenever it's easier to create new voters than to win voters over, you have a serious problem." And Elon quoted that saying, "True." And this is real. It's Netflix's description of Gone with the Wind that reads this. It's a 1939 American Civil War epic known for its racism. To learn more about Black lives in America, search Black Lives Matter. And Elon said this needs to change. And on British politics, Marine Le Pen's poll numbers have skyrocketed. Before the last presidential election in 2022, Macron was on 27%, while Le Pen was on 23%. She's currently sat on 36%. Her nearest competitor is on 16%. France will deport millions. Elon quoted this saying, "She is France's last hope." And Brevel said on immigration, "Yes, I hope she will become less socialist in the economic part." And Elon said, "Is any major party in France not socialist?" And moving away from politics, Paul Graham says an initial startup idea can't usually be both grand and precise. In practice, they're usually either grand and vague or precise and small. Precise and small is better. You know who your initial users are and you expand outward. With grand and vague, you can't even get started. And Elon said it should be both. And the CEO of JP Morgan recently stated that Elon Musk is the Einstein of the 21st century. Ravel says, "I quite agree with him. Imagine Einstein in 1905. He lays the foundations of relativity, a total revolution, and yet it takes nearly 20 years for the whole world to recognize him as the superstar he was. Time for the ideas to seep in, for the resistances to fall, for the truth to become irrefutable." We're living exactly the same with Elon. He doesn't just innovate, he redefines the standards on absolutely everything. The way you manage a company, the way a state should be governed. The research in academia he's rendered obsolete, stuck in a slow, bureaucratic, and disconnected model. And above all, education. He understands that a child doesn't need to be pushed to spend hours on a video game. Learning needs to be just as captivating, just as fluid, just as addictive as a good game. It's by connecting these two worlds that we unleash human potential. With SpaceX, he's redrawn humanity's future in space. With Tesla, Neuralink, xAI, he's aligning energy, intelligence, and consciousness on a trajectory toward abundance. For the first time, one man has the capacity to execute his vision without intermediaries. No committees, no lobbies, no dilutions, just first principles, assume risk, and relentless execution. In 15 to 20 years, when globalism and wokeism has been relegated to the dustbins of history, we'll see clearly what he represents. The historical figure of the 21st century. The one who shifted humanity from an era of moral and bureaucratic decline to an era of conquest, truth, and massive construction. The builders always win, and we're lucky to live in the time when one of the greatest is writing the most exhilarating chapter. And Elon says, "Thanks, Jamie." And Captain Ellie says, "I love Elon Musk." And Elon Musk gave him a heart. And here's every Elon Musk project: Blaster, Zip2, X.com, Tesla Roadster, Falcon 1, Tesla Model S, Falcon 9, and it goes on. I'll put this in the pinned comment if you guys want to check it out. And Elon quoted this saying, "I'm putting together a product gallery at my ranch in Texas." And finally, who could forget Grok Imagine? May Musk used Grok to remove the background for X fashion. And this is the before right here. And you can see her project right here replaces it with a blue background and also animates her. And Elon responded, "Cool." And that's everything Elon said today. Starlink version 5 just came out. It's lighter and faster. Starship V3 flies tomorrow. The X algorithm will soon be open source, and that's after it experienced a bunch of changes, for example, boosting friends' posts. It looks as if there's broad agreement between tech CEOs that there should be some sort of governing or regulation board in the United States for AI models. And Elon is continuing to push for a pro-birth agenda. Anyway, that's everything I have for you guys. If you guys want early access to these videos, or you want to see the upcoming vlog I have with my NASA engineer grandpa who worked on the original space shuttle project, where we go and see a Falcon 9 Starship launch next week, consider joining this channel as a member, and I will see you guys tomorrow.